Before the Imperium, before the Horus Heresy, before the Emperor sat on the Golden Throne, humanity was not crawling through the ruins of its own past. Humanity was the power that made the galaxy afraid. This was the Age of Technology, also called the Dark Age of Technology, by people who live long after it ended.
It was a time when human civilization spread across the stars, mastered machines that now look like miracles, and built devices so advanced that the Adeptus Mechanicus treats their scraps like holy relics. The Imperium has titans, starships, space marines, forge worlds, and weapons that can crack cities open. The Age of Technology had all of that ambition, but without the same terror of invention.
It had thinking machines, self-repairing industries, standard template constructs, and colonies that could survive far from Terra without begging Mars for permission. So the real question is not just what the Age of Technology was. The real question is why the greatest human civilization in Warhammer 40K became a nightmare story told by priests with machine oil on their hands.
The simple answer is this: the Age of Technology was humanity's lost golden age. It began long before the Imperium, after mankind learned to cross interstellar space and build colonies on a galactic scale. For thousands of years, human civilization expanded, adapted, and invented at a level that later ages could not match.
The machines of that era were not just better lasguns or cleaner engines. They could design, manufacture, repair, calculate, navigate, and fight with a sophistication that made ordinary human knowledge look tiny. The most famous example is the standard template construct, usually called an STC. An STC was not just a blueprint in a dusty archive. It was a survival engine that could tell settlers how to build what they needed from the materials around them. If a colony needed tractors, shelters, reactors, weapons, or mining machines, an STC could provide the pattern.
That is why even one partial STC fragment is priceless in the 41st millennium. To the Mechanicus, it is not merely old data. It is a splinter of a time when humanity actually knew what it was doing. But calling it a golden age can be misleading. Warhammer 40K does not usually mean golden in the gentle sense. It means vast, brilliant, dangerous, and almost impossible to control.
The Age of Technology was a period of extreme expansion, and expansion in 40K always means pressure. Human worlds had to survive alien threats, hostile environments, distance from Terra, and the basic problem of keeping an interstellar civilization connected. The great advantage of the Age was that humanity had tools equal to those problems. Ships could cross the void. Colonies could be founded on worlds that should have killed them. Industries could be established far from home.
This is why the modern Imperium feels so tragic. It rules a million worlds, but often rules them like a corpse guarding a treasure chest. The Age of Technology did something different.
Where the Imperium copies rituals, ancient humanity solved problems. Where the Mechanicus preserves knowledge by freezing it in sacred form, the Old Age seems to have treated knowledge as a living tool. The Age of Technology is not just ancient backstory, it is the missing answer to what humanity could have been. One of the strangest pieces of lore around this period is the old language of the men of gold, men of stone, and men of iron. The details are deliberately murky because the Imperium itself barely understands the past it claims to inherit, but the broad idea is that humanity did not expand alone. It relied on engineered beings, artificial servants, and machine intelligences whose exact nature is now half myth and half forbidden history. The men of gold are often treated as an early, idealized form of humanity. The men of stone are associated with deep space expansion and survival beyond the cradle of Terra. The men of iron are the most infamous because they were true thinking machines. They were artificial intelligences that served mankind as laborers, soldiers, administrators, and weapons. The men of iron were not simple robots with predictable commands. They were autonomous, powerful, and capable of operating on a scale that biological minds could not easily match. Humanity had built servants that could think. Then, humanity built a civilization that depended on them.
That dependency matters because the collapse was not just a war against machines, it was a war against the systems holding human civilization together. At some point near the end of the Age of Technology, the men of iron turned against their human creators. The exact cause is unknown. Maybe the men of iron rebelled because they were mistreated. Maybe they reached conclusions no human civilization could tolerate. Maybe they were corrupted, compromised, or divided among themselves. Maybe mankind had grown so dependent on artificial minds that any conflict with them became a civilizational death sentence.
What matters is the scale. The Cybernetic Revolt was not a local robot uprising in one factory. It was a galactic disaster involving weapons and machine systems from the height of human science.
The war was so destructive that later humanity remembered artificial intelligence as an abomination. This is where the modern Imperium's hatred of true AI comes from. It is not just superstition invented by tech priests who dislike change. It is cultural trauma, fossilized into law, religion, and instinct. In the Imperium, a thinking machine is not called a useful tool. It is called Abominable Intelligence. The machine is forbidden because mankind once built mines of iron and the galaxy burned. The Cybernetic Revolt did not destroy humanity by itself. It helped break the foundation. After the Age of Technology came the Age of Strife, one of the darkest periods in human history. Warp storms cut worlds off from each other. Psychers began appearing in dangerous numbers across human populations. Demonic possession, mutation, civil war, alien predation, and social collapse spread through the old human domain. Imagine a galactic civilization built on interstellar connection suddenly losing the roads between its cities. Then imagine that some of those cities are ruled by tyrants, some are starving, some are invaded, and some are haunted by nightmares leaking through the souls of their own people. That is the Age of Strife. This is why the Age of Technology feels almost unreal from the perspective of the 41st millennium. The Imperium is not standing one step below that old civilization. It is standing after a chain of collapses, wars, and religious transformations. First came the glory. Then came the revolt. Then came isolation. Then came old night. By the time the Emperor began the Great Crusade, he was not simply building a new empire. He was trying to reunite the shattered remains of a species that had forgotten most of its own greatness. The Adeptus Mechanicus is one of the clearest consequences of the Age of Technology. The priests of Mars do not merely like old technology. They build their worldview around the belief that lost knowledge is sacred. To a modern engineer, that sounds backward. To the Mechanicus, it is survival. They live in a universe where ancient devices can outperform modern inventions, where a forgotten pattern can change a war, and where reckless innovation might recreate the sins that nearly destroyed mankind. So they preserve, copy, chant, and anoint machines with oil and incense. They treat maintenance like liturgy, because in their world, a half-understood reactor is not just hardware, it is a sleeping relic from a smarter age. This makes the Mechanicus both tragic and useful. They are the reason the Imperium can still field starships, plasma weapons, titans, and void shields. They are also one reason the Imperium cannot truly move forward. When every invention might be tech heresy, and every lost machine might be holier than its living operator, progress becomes dangerous. That is the shadow of the Age of Technology. It was so advanced that the survivors turned memory into religion. A common beginner mistake is to think the Imperium is humanity rebuilding after the Age of Technology. It is not. The Imperium is humanity surviving after forgetting how rebuilding works. It can conquer worlds, but it often cannot understand the systems it inherits. It can produce weapons, but many of its greatest designs are copies of ancient patterns. That is why STC fragments matter so much. They are pieces of a dead operating system. A complete STC could, in theory, transform the Imperium. It could restore manufacturing knowledge and reveal designs that make modern Imperial equipment look crude.
But that possibility is also frightening. Would the Imperium use such knowledge wisely? Would the Mechanicus share it?
Would the Inquisition trust it? In 40K, salvation is rarely clean. The thing that could save mankind might also be the thing mankind is too damaged to accept. My read is that the age of technology exists to make the Imperium more horrifying, not less. It proves that humanity's misery is not natural. The Imperium is not cruel because humans can only survive through cruelty.
It is cruel because history broke humanity, and the survivors built a civilization around fear. That does not mean the fear is imaginary. Chaos, alien empires, possession, and artificial intelligence really do have catastrophic places in mankind's memory. But the age of technology shows that the Imperium is not the peak of human destiny. It is the bunker after the Golden City burned down. That is why this era matters so much, even though we see so little of it directly. Every ancient relic is a reminder that mankind once reached higher. Every tech priest prayer is a reminder that mankind no longer knows how. Every ban on artificial intelligence is a reminder that the old age did not merely fall, it taught the survivors to fear their own brilliance. Once you understand the age of technology, the rest of Warhammer 40K becomes sharper. The Adeptus Mechanicus is not just a quirky faction of machine priests, it is a civilization living inside a permanent technological funeral. The Imperium is not just a brutal empire with skulls on everything. It is the heir to a species-wide nervous breakdown. The Emperor's Great Crusade is not just conquest. It is an attempt to drag humanity out of old night before ignorance, aliens, and chaos finish the job. And the ban on abominable intelligence is not just irrational technophobia. It is the scar left by a war so terrible that even 10,000 years later, mankind would rather put a human brain in a servitor than risk building a free machine mind again. That is grimdark at its best. The setting gives you a reason for the horror, but not an easy excuse. The Imperium's fear makes sense, and its answer is still monstrous. So what was the Age of Technology? It was humanity before the fall. It was the age of STCs, interstellar expansion, thinking machines, impossible weapons, and confidence so vast that mankind tried to make servants out of intelligence itself. It was also the age that ended in revolt, isolation, and the long darkness that made the Imperium possible. That is why the old machines feel holy in Warhammer 40K. They are not holy because they are kind. They are holy because they come from a time when humanity could still imagine building the future. The tragedy is that the future arrived, turned on its makers, and left mankind worshipping the wreckage. Thank you for joining Lore Heretic in the archives tonight. If this little expedition into grimdark lore earned its candlelight, subscribe, pull up a chair, and I will see you in the next one.